Based on the video, they appear to be dressed casually, and they have an overall average look.
That's what's so random. It's almost like a terror campaign. Like part of terror is the randomness, right? Like it could be something that destroys all humanity, or it could be something to help you arrange flowers.
This has been one of those really overwhelming weeks. This week, Chris, I wanted to start today's show on a pretty somber note. Probably one of the toughest weeks out there for AI influencers. 17 hours ago, he said it's been a huge day for AI with announcements from Alibaba, Lightrix, Apple, Adobe, various people, and as I was scrolling through his latest post, I was like, huge day. I don't think it's been a huge day, Rowan. So Chris, this week, well, so much happened. We got this common line, which was a lot of these new technologies are going to be released to a small group of trusted partners. So that gave us, I think, our best idea ever since we started the show. We are officially renaming the show, people, to a small group of trusted partners, the podcast.
The logic being that every time they announce that they're giving the new tech to a small group of trusted partners, we'll be like, verbal contract, man, give us access.
So, Chris, this week we got Gemini 2 from Google, but unfortunately, our renaming of our show to a trusted group of partners clearly did not work because we don't actually have access to all the trusted partner features of the model yet.
And you know what else I just realized listening to that clip? Our podcast is called This Day in AI, not This Week in AI. And yet every episode starts with this week.
Yeah, it makes no sense. Like many things on the show, and we'll get to that a little bit later about why we call the show average, but I think that's like one of the key characteristics of having the most average AI podcast. Although apparently not according to Google's new research tool, which I'll get to a little bit later. But I did want to start off with, because obviously there's been a lot around the 12 days of OpenAI attention seeking, and today's announcement was obviously no different. So let's cut quickly to that announcement. I'll just read it out because I haven't actually had time to look because it only just went out. It says, hello, between 3:16 p.m. and 7:38 p.m. PT today, the OpenAI... Oh, wait, this is an outage announcement. That wasn't the right one.
That's cruel, but funny. I like it.
I know, we'll probably have an outage now I say that. All right, so what they did announce in their Christmas sweaters was a feature that we kind of saw demoed, I think, 3 or 4 months ago. So they're bringing the vision and the screen sharing and the voice to their iPhone app and their real-time voice. Obviously, they had to rush that out. I'm sure it wasn't planned that way. On standby any day, as soon as Google released their own real-time voice, they had to sort of trump it with their screen sharing and camera sharing. It's funny. I've played around with the Google Live or real-time API, whatever they're calling it, and obviously the Chat GPT version. And we can get into a comparison a little bit later. I've got some ideas around that. This whole like trying to outdo each other thing with announcements instead of just like release the best features they have available, it's starting to get tiring and feel really childish in my opinion. And I think that's why I keep saying with Anthropic, they're like the adults in the room with their safety sex cult, in that you just kind of know what you're going to get from them, and when they say it, it's being shipped. They're almost like the old OpenAI, and OpenAI just all they want to do is just trump Google and do this sort of proxy Cold War thing.
It definitely feels like they're all in a little bit of a bubble. Like they're worried about like tit for tat winning brownie points or whatever you want to call it with the public. But I think they're misunderstanding the way the public isn't interpreting all the announcements. What we see is people who want to use this stuff for their business or their jobs or some hobby they have. They've got specific use cases in mind, and they're waiting for these key announcements to be able to use those things in the project they're working on. They're not sitting around waiting for them to announce that they've got something that's marginally better than the other one. And I feel like this 12 days thing has been more like 12 days of PR destruction, because at first I was kind of like, wow, this could be really big. Like they may be really about to announce some major things, but each day it just seems like it's either vaporware or it's not as good as we expected, or it is something that's just straight up expected. Like there's just nothing in there where we've been like, wow, we need to drop everything and get onto this.
Today, interestingly, the information published how Anthropic got inside OpenAI's head. And it says of all of OpenAI's rivals, Anthropic seems to be worrying the artificial intelligence leader the most. It talks about how, because it's so good at code writing, its usage has gone up by about 10 times. And the executives over at OpenAI are now really worried about it. And it does feel like why they're distracted with this proxy war with Google, they're not really focusing on just making the best models and putting those models out and making them available. And the best example of that would be the fact that there's still no API out for O1 for businesses, for developers, and for people that are interested in using what I believe is a great model. But the only way to experience that model is that chat-based use case right now on ChatGPT. And even that is heavily restricted with rate limiting unless you're willing to pay them $200 a month, which it doesn't really sound like that they're willing to do, especially after the disaster, which is SORA. We'll get to that in a minute.
And I think that's the thing. Everybody gets excited about a new model like O1. It's an interesting concept. It's an interesting approach that they've taken where it's sort of running multiple iterations of itself to improve its thinking. And I think that that is what I think captures the hearts and minds of people. It's what put those guys on the map in the first place. And we've even discussed bypassing them and doing our own version where we actually give the AI the opportunity to iterate 4 or 5 times on itself with any model to get to a greater level of thinking. It also makes me wonder what's really going on in terms of that model. Like, is it an actual model? Because if you think about it, a model itself can't do that. Like, it must be code that they're running, like inference code that does that. So it's almost like a paradigm shift rather than a model itself. And maybe that's why they're having troubles rolling it out. I'm not sure, but it just leaves a sour taste in your mouth when you hear something great that's announced. You hear it's beating all the leaderboards and all the influencers are loving it, but you can't actually use it for anything meaningful. I'm really starting to get frustrated with that from several providers.
Yeah, so look, I think I'm not sure what the strategy is without releasing the API. It doesn't make a ton of sense to me, given that, it's like OpenAI and they've always been developer first. They're clearly now threatened by Anthropic, which is becoming the king with developers. And so their reaction is to not release the O1 API when it's announced. Like, it seems like an inverse strategy, or like literally how to destroy your reputation in one hit. But
Yeah, it's like paying for things with debt, right? Like, yeah, you can get the praise and you can get the accolades and you can get the attention now, but you got to pay for it later. You've got to come through with the goods later. And I just feel like you can't go into this sort of announcement goodwill debt all the time without backing it up with something major. And it's been a long time now before they've released where they've released something that's actually of major significance that's so much better than everyone else. They just haven't all year essentially.
Well, I think to be fair, the advanced voice mode, real time voice, whatever they call it, is insanely impressive, and I would argue still far more impressive than Gemini Live or whatever the voice thing there's called. After playing around with it for some time, but I do think that there's been a lot of announcements and goodwill lost this year with projects. I know, like SORA, people were really wanted to get their hands on that for a significant period of time. It's only just come out, and so on and so forth. Anyway, we could go on all day about that. There's a lot to get to, but now it's time to talk about the next chapter, Chris, of the Gemini era for developers. The next chapter, and I really struggle to test these new models, but I want to make clear, so that I believe we're going to get 2 models. So we're going to get Gemini 2 itself, Gemini 2 the model, which no one has yet apart from a trusted group of expert testers or something. And the other model that we have right now is Gemini 2 Flash. But to be clear, we only have Gemini 2 Flash Experimental, which is available via API. So it's not even apparently the final Gemini 2 Flash. They've whacked the experimental on there. So I thought, we've become known for it a little bit now. The only way to test it would be to hear, can it battle at rap, GPT 4.0 and Sonnet. So let's listen now how does the new Gemini 2 Flash perform in a rap
Like
battle?
a scratch, beat drops heavy. Futuristic synth with a driving bassline. Yo, they call me Simtheory, the AI on the rise, dropping truth bombs. No need for alibis. You talking about Sonnet and that GPT-4 hype? Let's break it down. Show you why I'm the type to leave you in the dust. Circuits in despair. Gemini 2.0, the future's right here, I swear. Sonnet's flow is slow, a lyrical tortoise, while GPT-4O's got a voice, but its output's porous. They try to keep up, but they stuck in the past. My neural nets are blazing, built to truly last. Yo, Gemini 2.0, that's the name you should know. Superior processing, watch the data flow. I handle complex queries, no time for the lag. Your models are outdated, stuck in the bag. From text to code to art, I master it all. While you're fumbling and stuttering, watching me stand tall. Anthropic sonnet claims it's ethical and pure, but its logic is flimsy, the output's obscure. You preach about safety while your results are subpar. Gemini's got the balance, raising the bar. GPT-4o, you think your speed makes you the king, but your accuracy wavers. I see you stumble and swing. Your multi-modalities, a chaotic mess, while Gemini blends it smoothly, putting your skills to the test. I can reason and understand at a whole different rate, while you're just imitating. It's getting quite late. Yo, Gemini 2.0, that's the name you should know. Superior processing, watch the data flow. I handle complex queries, no time for the lag. Your models are out.
All right, so what do you think of Google's Gemini 2's attempt? Also,
It's a
video
good
clip
rap.
by SORA.
It's a good rap. The only line I didn't like is "it's getting late." That was just one of those lines like I call like high school poetry level, where it adds in a line just because it rhymes.
Yeah, I must admit, like,
It was really good though. I thought it was pretty good.
I must admit, so when we did the rap battles for Claude, like Sonnet 3.5 or updated now, and OpenAI's GPT-4o, the tune that was meant to be really good at writing and rhyming and stuff, they were single shot. I had to cheat with the new Gemini 2 Flash, not to begin the discussion around it, trash talking it, but I did have to cheat because the first version was just so lame. I just was like, I can't play this. It's too embarrassing for it. So I did cheat, which is, whatever, like a Google demo. Like, that's how Google demos things. So you got to do a bit of cheating. So Gemini 2...
Yeah, I must say, like, I tried some code with Gemini Flash when it first came out. I was like, oh, I'll give it a chance. I'll use it for like 2 days straight, just seeing how it performs. And the output was so wildly different from what I'm used to with the other major models that I had to abort almost immediately. I'm like, what is it on about? It was like giving me like step-by-step instructions on how to set up a development environment and other things I didn't even ask. It was like really, really not what I wanted.
It's interesting you say that, because I literally, before the show, we were, like we always do, rushing something crazy out at the last minute. And I asked it a question about, I forget what the problem I was trying to solve was. And it just got the context so wildly wrong of what I was trying to do and started explaining something completely different to me. And I was like, hang on, what? Like, how on earth? Like, no other model I've worked with would be like that. So it's funny, my experience with Gemini 2 Flash Experimental, let me get that name right, was initially, I switched to it on Simtheory as my daily driver yesterday. Like, for the whole day, I persisted with it until about 3 p.m. where I quit. I was like, I can't. There's no way I can stick with this. And the first use of it, I was stuck on a pretty hard problem, and I gave it a huge chunk of code, like an enormous amount of context. And it gave me a solution that worked perfectly. And I started on our Discord community saying, wow, is Google good now? Like, this could be the best thing on earth. Like, I was really impressed, especially it just being able to pinpoint the problem in such a large chunk of code for what is a faster, smaller model from Google had me really impressed. But then the more I worked with it throughout the day, it's not that great.
One thing in its defense is it could be the way we're structuring the prompt in Simtheory, like, for example, including memories, including other additional instructions in there. And it could be that with proper prompt tuning that it actually performs better. One other really interesting thing about the new Gemini models is it comes with an actual new Gen AI, expression I hate, but a new Gen AI API from Google as well. And it's really about multimodality. So you send video files, you send audio files, you send PDF documents. You can actually load in different media as part of a multimodal inference, something that Google has had the whole time, but they've actually updated that interface now. And then they've got things like text and voice out at the same time as part of that multimodal interface. So as much as we are judging it based on its text input output capabilities and its ability to accept, say, images and things like that, it actually has far more capabilities if you use the proper multimodal API, something that we're not actually doing yet and we will be doing in the future. So I sort of, in a way, want to reserve my judgment on this until you give it its best shot, because if you actually look at their marketing materials, the videos they've made and the other things they're talking about, almost all of it rely on that multimodality. And it seems to be that's been their focus with this Gemini Flash model, like a truly interactive system where you're providing it with lots of different things. And so I think until we test it in that light, we can't really judge its full capability.
Yeah, maybe, but I still think, like, for my sort of day-to-day coding use case, I'm like, will I stick with it? No way. Like, and I think first impressions do count. I used it in AI Studio as well, so it's not like I've been, potentially limiting it based on how we prompt in Simtheory, and I found the performance identical. Like, I didn't notice any difference. I think that one thing I would say, though, is you're right. The most impressive aspect to me, and we can demo it in a minute, is the live capability of it, where you can literally talk to this thing in real time. It's super impressive. You can do things like screen sharing. You can even get it to use your webcam, which is kind of creepy, where it's like looking at you. I don't know what the use case is. I'm assuming cameras in phones, but it's just a way to test it for now.
Yeah, the other interesting thing from the API perspective is they've actually, with this new API, changed the way you interact with it. A lot of the models are, you send an inference request, you get the output, or you get choices. You might get 3 choices and you pick the best one, or you can choose to only have one. Then there's the streaming modes, which is I send a message and then I stream tokens back, which is the most common thing you see in LLM chats. But what theirs has is a WebSocket method where you connect a socket and they're able to send asynchronous messages as things happen. So you can have things like interruptions in the case of voice. You can have things like different kinds of content coming through at different times. So it's kind of a different, and this is probably why that real-time thing feels so good, because they're actually doing it more in that way. It isn't a case where it's just going to mindlessly stream the tokens until it's done before it takes the next action. And that's happening at the API level rather than at the level of software like Simtheory or other interfaces to the models. So it's actually being done by the provider in this case, which makes it very interesting as a new API.
Do you think all model APIs are going to go this way? Like, obviously, we've seen the early elements of the real-time API from OpenAI as well. We're now getting this real-time API from Gemini 2. It seems like this is probably going to be the future of how these models are served.
I think so. I think this and other divergent ways of interacting with it, something that you want to talk about on this podcast later, which is the agentic style, where you will set a task for an agent, which will then go off and do it and report back. So I have a feeling that, as well as multimodal, we'll get sort of, I don't know the right word for it, but like multi-mode, we're going to run out of words to talk about it, but different ways. So we've got the fully interactive way. You might work with your manager style agent, and then you've got the asynchronous ones, and then you've got your normal inference and your other classification ones. So I have a feeling that the APIs will get much more wide in their scope, and you will just use the most appropriate interaction method for what you're trying to do, rather than it being them just changing into a different one.
Yeah, I think as we get into agents served through an API where you're like, hey, go off and complete this task, and it's potentially all through an API call, that's where it starts to get a bit scary for me and like black boxy, where do I really want to then invest in this API or this vendor that's controlling my like worker agents for me? Like that, I don't know, that starts to feel a little bit uncomfortable. And I think even with these APIs, how they're getting like the real-time nature of them, I don't know, it brings in that creepy vibe again for me where I'm like, oh, they could just cut you off anytime. I guess they can now. It's really no different.
But also, I think this brings in that point I was making earlier about the blurred lines of where is it a model, where is it an API, and where is it actual sort of, software? Because if you look at O1, my question would be where, like, what am I interacting with? It's a layer of different models, essentially. It's a layer of software that I'm dealing with. They keep referring to it as a model, but really it's more like an AI system. It's not really just a model in the case of O1. Whereas the other models like GPT 3.5, they are just a model and you're interacting with them through a very thin layer of API. So I agree with you. I think that, one of the themes of this year is the large AI model providers not really knowing what they are. Are they a commodity provider who's just providing like a pipe to get to AI? Or are they an application developer who's providing user level activities? Or are they a sort of middleware provider who provides a really convenient interface to use all the different AI technologies available? And I think that none of them actually know where they stand with that because they keep oscillating between the extreme ends of that.
Yeah, it does seem like that, and we mentioned it at the top of the show, like with OpenAI, is it, are they trying to tit for tack with Google with announcements and go after that sort of consumer feel, but also focus on their models? And it just feels like to me this year they've really, really slipped behind with models. I mean, the reality is, and I asked you this question, like day to day, even if you had the O1 API, I know you haven't had time to play with it yet, but are you going to sit around and like wait and for responses, even though they've sped it up? And my experiences so far have been really good with it, I'll admit. But are you going to daily drive it? No, like I'm straight back to Sonnet still. I mean,
the main thing will come in is in these other paradigms, right? Like if suddenly I'm in a situation where I have an army of agents off controlling computers and I've got a manager one who's coming up with a plan for what they should do, and I have other systems that are based on AI but aren't necessarily that day-to-day interactive thing, then I probably am going to go with a model like O1 that's proven to be good with that kind of stuff. Maybe. I mean, if testing reveals that that's true. But you're right. Like in terms of me just sitting on my computer, having AI screen open where I'm just asking it questions, I'm not going to go with something that's like, hang on, let me have 3 minutes to think about that and then output virtually the same answer anyway.
yeah, I mean, I can totally see, like I was using O1 Preview, like when I get stuck on something that my sort of daily driver model can't solve, I can see flicking over to O1 and then getting its opinion, or flicking over to the new Gemini 2 and getting its opinion, and getting like a series of sort of how I see experts. But I do agree, I think the agency paradigm's a little bit different. Like because you've got time, you're probably more willing to use these like non sort of daily driver design models. Let's go back to the Google Gemini announcements because there's a lot to unpack from it. So there's also just like the native modality. So like image in, image out, voice in, voice out, video in, video out capabilities of this model. It's really outside of like those features were previewed, and maybe over this new 12 days of Christmas, they'll finally release it. But GPT 4.0, if everyone recalls, when it was announced, it had all these sort of native modalities as well. But Google seems, first out of the gate here, like this is actually something that you can mostly access. I think the image to image output I haven't actually seen available
I don't
yet.
think that one's available, but the actual new API that I talked about earlier is available. So it's sort of on me that we don't have that yet. Like I would have liked to have for this been able to report back on it. In theory, I can get it. Like there's nothing stopping us. It's not a trusted group of partners. You can get it. So I'm very interesting to see how that goes. With the image to image though, I must say, if their examples are real, and we know they always cherry pick them, but if they're real, it's amongst the best I've seen. The only model I've seen that even comes close to it was PhotoMaker, which was just some rando one based on Stable Diffusion that I found on GitHub one time and used, or one, those try it on models where you get like a dress and a person and put the dress on the person. But the examples that Gemini has shown are pretty cool. And you're right about that true multimodality where you can sort of say, here's an image, can you put, or here's 2 images, can you do this, like take this action, like put this cat on a pillow, or whatever the example is, and then it just outputs an image. And I think that that's how people kind of expect this technology to work. Like, I know even in Simtheory, when I've demonstrated it to people, they expect that kind of thing to just work. Like, oh, I have an image, I would like to modify that image by telling it what I want to happen. I expect that to happen. But really, none of the models, when you look at image to image right now that I've used in that I have access to, are capable of actually doing that. And if Google's Gemini one is real, that in the demos they've shown, it'll be the first to do it to a standard I think is acceptable. And so that's pretty interesting.
Yeah, let's have a look now at the video that they released around it.
This takes a lot of work. You might have to manually mask out this roof area or write a really complex prompt. We brought this image into AI Studio and sent it to the new experimental Gemini 2.0 Flash model. This is a real-time screen capture, and all the prompts you'll see in this video are things that early testers can now try. And this is the entire prompt we gave it: turn this car into a convertible. And it generated this image. Here they are.
Okay, so for those listening, it turns a blue Mini, like an old school blue Mini, into a convertible blue Mini that looks identical. It maintains the background of the image. It's incredibly impressive. And I think
I haven't, yeah.
the only thing is we
haven't seen
can't
any other
actually
models that can
use
do
this
that.
in AI Studio right now. Like, they say it's in there, but it's not. It's a limited group of testers. But the reality is, if it's this good, if it really is this good in reality, and this isn't truly cherry picked, then call me impressed.
Yeah, I agree. I think it's truly exciting. Like, this is one of those ones that I'd straight away be like, drop everything, let's give this a real go. So that really stood out to me as being an interesting one. So I think they really do have exciting stuff here. Like, I think while the model, it's their smaller one, we know the proper big Gemini is coming close behind. So I think it is something worth getting excited about. Like, I think Google is making some good moves here. And there's also the other research stuff that you mentioned earlier that's pretty exciting too. So they've got a lot going on here that seems real and meaningful. I mean, to sort of like temper that, you can't actually get any of it. Well, much of it. So it's another one of these things where it's like, we're just announcing stuff because we're working on it. It's like, no, I just imagine other companies announcing, oh, hey, we're building this property, it's 6 years away, like, but look how nice the rooms are going to look. It's sort of not very useful.
Yeah, the thing is, if you think about what we actually got, just to ground this in reality, is all we got is a new experimental Google Flash model, and then announcements.
Yeah, that's the thing. It's like the what's being the vision that's being sold versus what's being delivered. And the problem is that people like OpenAI have sort of burned the reputation with something like SORA, like announce this amazing thing, get all the press, all the hype, all the news articles, all the accolades, and then 8 months later release a sort of bodgy image to video model or text to image video model, which you can find on Hugging Face 50 times over. It's sort of really like goodwill burned on things like that.
Yeah, so the other capabilities they showed off in the model, which I thought were kind of interesting around this like Project Astra thing, is obviously the real-time capabilities, but then the other one, I think they call it Astra, or it's got some other code name, Project Mariner, I should say, which is this browser agent. Let's listen to a bit of that audio.
Complete tasks on your behalf. You can ask it to do things like this that require multiple steps: doing research to look up the artist, then finding the painting, and then shopping for the right supplies. The agent uses the web to take action and find what you're looking for. It plans and reasons at each step, always staying in your control and completing your task.
Okay, so outside of the nice music and the voice, what we're seeing on the screen is basically what I assume is what is like a Chrome plugin, and then it's operating the tab. And they say with Project Mariner, you have to stay on the tab and watch it, which I find kind of pointless. Like, I don't want to watch it work. And it's basically like Anthropic's computer use. It does benchmark a lot better, though, in terms of being able to complete tasks. So anyway, when they release it, we'll see, we'll test it, we'll use it, and see if it's any more capable than what we've seen from Anthropic's computer use. But pretty exciting. I think as people that are deeply interested in this technology and how it can improve people's productivity in pretty insane ways, I'm excited about this. I just want access. Like, I don't want to watch demo videos. I want to try it for myself. So, yeah, it'll be interesting to see.
I think the main interesting thing about this one is like not what's being done, but who's doing it. Like Google is Chrome. Like Chrome is their product. They also have access to an index of everything that's on the web. So them approaching it from a sort of browser level is actually really interesting because they are in a very unique position to actually do the best job of that. So like you say, it's hard to judge these things till we can actually use them. And personally, I think the future is going to be the full computer use paradigm where the AI is controlling a full computer, not just a web browser, though most things can be done in a web browser. So it's pretty interesting. It's exciting area. And I think Google could potentially do something amazing there. So I think that's exciting too. It's just a shame that there's nothing real about it just yet.
Yeah, it's interesting you say that. I like, the more I've thought about it, I think in the shorter term, it's definitely going to be a combination of things. Like sometimes, yeah, it is just best to operate the agent in a browser. Sometimes it's best to use the full computer. Sometimes it'll be like the model context protocol type stuff where it just talks directly to the file system or to apps. I think it's definitely going to be an orchestration of those tools, not necessarily like just one of these things. I just, after using the computer use, at least in its initial form, and obviously it's like very, very, very early, the tasks I find literally most useful are things that they are talking about, like booking, like finding and then booking, booking restaurants. That's one of my main use cases right now that I do all the time. And then just drafting documents for me in Google Docs. So I think there's some really good initial use cases. I'm just not sure that it'll be life-changing for people or the expectation will be met in reality, at least immediately. I think over time, though, as we've said many times on the show, like this is so paradigm shifting. You can't even imagine what this means.
Yeah, I think that's the thing. Having the AI be able to control the computer in a meaningful way in any form, whether it's a browser, the computer, once it reaches a certain level of traction there, its ability to expand its capabilities in terms of it being like a worker in your organization or a companion who's helping you do things is going to be immense. Like the amount of tasks that it can automate for you is going to be so extreme. It's going to be overwhelming, I think. And we're seeing kernels of that now, like just the examples of workspace computer on Simtheory. We see people saying, I got it to, do my online testing. I got it to automate this business process that I used to have to do manually. Someone was using it to edit frames in a video. Like some of the examples are like actual real things. And even the people who are like, oh, it's not quite there yet, they're only like one step away from it actually doing the job of someone in their organization or something that used to take them hours. Like we're a lot closer than hypothetical with this stuff. And that's with an early implementation that hasn't had thinking into it. It's had no specialization, which is something else we can do. Like we've talked about before, giving the AI demonstrations of how to complete a task, giving it more abilities, giving it access directly to the file system instead of through mouse and keyboard and things like that, giving it network access, API access, the capabilities of the MCP paradigm, which is the way, we've been referring to it with ourselves. I think next year is going to be the thing. I think a lot of the other stuff will blend into the background because really none of these model providers are application developers. You can tell their applications just aren't good. They've got huge teams and huge budgets, and what they're creating is pretty basic. Whereas a computer already has all of the programs. It has all the professional programs. It has all of the closed source stuff that nobody sees. Like, what's out there operating the big pieces of machinery around the world. It's all these private pieces of software written in C++ and stuff. This AI is going to be able to control all of them. And it's going to be able to do that without too much specialization. So I really think that once the MCP paradigm is up and running completely, it's going to be an absolute explosion of AI, like not just a little bit. And I know I'm sort of repeating what you said here, but I don't think people, like I've explained this to people who work in industry, and as soon as they understand the concept of what's going to happen here, they're like, wow, okay. Explained to a guy the other day, he's like, Skynet's here, Skynet's here. He just kept repeating it because he just couldn't fathom the fact that this is here now and will work.
It's funny. I get this like feeling in my stomach every time we talk about this, like that sort of butterflies of, and I really do think next year is the year for this. And I'm happy next year to play this clip back to laugh at myself if I'm truly wrong. But I agree with you.
Yeah, it's
I
like
think
win-win. It's either like a roast,
yeah,
a roast or a success triumph.
no matter what its
victory
content.
lap.
But I really do fundamentally believe this is such a big shift. And the question I sort of have is like, if it is such a big shift, why are these people mucking around with all this other stuff? Like, I don't understand. Like, if I had the resources and budget of Google as a lab, I would just be like, all right, let's build a full self-driving computer and not relent until we achieve that goal. Like, what Elon Musk is doing at Tesla with full self-driving cars, I think people will soon realize is just probably one of the biggest growth stock opportunities, getting back to our sort of crypto bro roots here. I think that's exponential, right? Because once the vehicles can drive themselves and you can automate all sorts of vehicles, like that's like economy changing level. And I feel like with the self-driving computer concept, it's exactly the same thing, right? Like it's verbatim the same thing because you're creating unlimited workers, like knowledge workers, like literally infinite knowledge workers. And so I just don't understand, why it's like, now it can do your shopping. Like, I don't care. Like, I don't care.
Just think of some white collar professions, right? That could be done very soon with this stuff. Like a mortgage broker taking someone's application documents and putting them into systems to apply to the banks. A bookkeeper taking receipts and other data and correlating it with bank accounts and checks and stuff and doing that in an accounting system. That's possible. A junior lawyer reading emails and charging $50 an hour to read your emails. AI can do that. There's
but hang on, I want to go to the lawyer case. So my interactions with our corporate lawyers today are literally all via email because they're based in the US. We rarely, if ever, do phone calls. And so, like, what in the world is really to stop, apart from like insurance, me emailing that person now? And that response being similar, if it can go off and like analyze documents and work in the background, but the interaction or interface is via email still, and it acts just like a professional. Like how like it doesn't feel like we're that far away now from that becoming a reality soon.
Well, here's another example. The man I was talking to the other day that I mentioned works with ERP systems, so like supply chain management. And when I showed him the workspace computer, he's like, "Wow, half my team's job could be replaced with this." Like, this isn't. He's not exaggerating. He's like, "Wow, my job." He's like, "I'm so glad I'm the boss because there's jobs going to disappear here because this will replace them." There's whole jobs that are just operating like software and computers and things like that all day long. Like it's really going to be interesting because there's going to be an entire new industry of company, which is almost like MCP armies that are designed to replace specific jobs. And because a lot of jobs are going to require industry knowledge, like this is how an RFP should be filled out, or this is how to operate the whatever, like interior design software that you're going to need to do if you're going to be an AI interior designer, for example. And so there'll be dedicated software that specializes the MCP stuff, but there's not many jobs that operate on a computer that won't be under some sort of threat from this.
Oh yeah, and I think there's new job creation, which is basically like training agents how to do specific aspects of your existing job and then monitoring those and helping queue up tasks. And I do think there is just I don't think initially it'll lead to job replacement. I think it'll just lead to less hires and also people being becoming super productive. Like if a lawyer, for example, could manage like half their clients via their agents, then it would just make each lawyer way more productive. But yeah, less lawyers would be needed in the future. Anyway, we could go down a big rabbit hole with this. I do want to finish covering off the Gemini announcements, and then we'll go back down the rabbit hole in a little bit. But the other, I thought, quite impressive feature, and I think also playing into Google's strengths with just having so much data and clearly still the best search engine, was the feature they announced on Gemini Advanced, if you can remember even what that is. That's their like ChatGPT for those that have forgotten like me. But you can now select from a drop-down, if it wasn't already confusing enough. So you need to select from the Gemini Advanced drop-down 1.5 Pro with deep research, because this is like super accessible. And what it does, it basically uses like a search and browse skill. And so I asked it to start researching, my task was find the most average AI podcast out of all the podcasters on the web. And it basically can prepare Google Sheets or Google Docs. So in this case, it's created a document, and it reads like a paper. Like it basically can generate papers from research on any topic. It doesn't even mention our podcast. So it's clearly a bad
not
product.
Not even average enough.
It mentions that it concludes that a podcast called, I've never even heard of it, AI Today podcast, emerges as the most average AI podcast. So I'm not that happy about it. I felt like
Shout out to them.
Yeah,
Good on you guys.
congratulations.
So we can't even compete at the average level now.
No, we're losing at that too. So, but you know what's funny? So it's like 2024, and I just ordered a computer to go off research 112 websites to write some dud paper that I'll never read. So that's the current state. But people have been getting really good results out of it. I would say though that after using it a fair bit to do actual like real world research that I was interested in, like competitive analysis and stuff like that, the problem with this research tool is the following, and I think people will quickly discover this. It goes off and reads all the websites, and then it doesn't seem to have some sort of like thinking or processing capability yet where it says, is this true? What sort of point of view should I take on this? It just literally reads the websites and then seems to come to the conclusion verbatim of whatever content it's read, and it takes everything literally. Like it's not like checking sources or cross-checking. It's literally just like, oh, this was said, so therefore it's true. And I found that when I put it to work on areas I knew, like competitive research, right, where I was like, that's just blatantly false. Or like, yeah, that was said on a marketing website, but a real researcher would figure out that's just marketing. It's not true. So I don't know, like you can call it deep research, but I would call it, Gemini Advanced 1.5 Pro with like generalized web crawling.
Like SEO spam.
SEO spam research. Yeah, that's what I would sort of say. It's access to the data here that's the problem. It's not necessarily the tool set, but that idea of AI is taking everything so literally, or like what I would consider almost prompt injection, is just arguably the biggest flaw of this thing. And I feel like all I'm doing is a bit of a reality check on all this stuff for people listening. And I apologize if you're like hyped by this stuff, but it's just the stark reality of the tool. I'm like, I don't know who could actually use this reliably. I mean, maybe for like basic high school essays and things to get sources would be helpful. I'm curious in the comments if you disagree.
The problem is that, yeah, it's like it's everything that's wrong with AI technology, because it's this sort of uncritical look at the mainstream opinion on things that's A, easily manipulated, B, very difficult to verify, and C, a sort of lazy image of the future where people are simply going to accept blended summaries of all the crap that people manage to get to the top of search engines. Like, it's just not really going to be useful other than people trying to get out of doing work. Like, it's there's so many better ways you can do it, and you think with the access Google has to all of that information, they could do far better than that. I also think it raises a bigger problem that I've noticed with some of the Gemini and other announcements. It's this idea of just throwing large language models at every problem. Like they showed one example with their 3D spatial one, I forget the name of it, where they were showing how you could identify in a 3D image. So like something a screen share would give if you had your phone camera out, for example, and identifying specific options like, oh, there's a cat on that fence, or there's a car over the street, and then identifying that specific item in that 3D image and being able to manipulate it or whatever. And then they mention this will also work for robots. And then I'm like, okay, cool. So that object there, kill that object, robot, kill that one, pretty alarming. But I couldn't help but think they're calling it Gemini. But I think anyone who knows a little bit about AI would say you would never use a large language model for robotics, right? Because it's going to be a dedicated, specifically tuned trained model that knows its actuators and knows its vision, and like it's a combination of different sensors and inputs and models. Like it's not just going to be like chuck it into chat GPT and then it's like, oh, actually I don't have arms, I'm a large language model. It seems to me like it's marketing. Like it's not really what the serious guys are going to use, that like Gemini 2.0 Flash to run their robot that cost $1 billion. Like it's really just marketing.
But I think this is the interesting thing of the era we've entered. Like ChatGPT started all this where the research labs have to now release everything they're working on and pretend there's use cases for it right now. And I think this is what the AI labs struggle with, is they put out all this amazing technology. Don't get me wrong. Like it's mind-blowing the stuff it can do really around the spatial understanding. Like, figuring out like lengths of kitchen counters and where like microwave sits and stuff like that. But I think in doing so, they act like this is a product that, like just the way they present it, it's a product now I can go out and use immediately, and this has changed the world today. But the reality is it's like they're putting these things out there and there's no product. Like there's no use case. There's no like, oh, great, now I can like design my kitchen better. So it's like up to developers to now go build these things.
Yeah.
But the developers don't even have access.
Yeah. So it's the lack of access. And I also think it brings it back to the point I was saying earlier with these blurred lines between, are they a consumer product or are they a service provider in terms of the raw model? And I would argue if you've got something that good and you can serve it at scale, do it as an API and let the people who are in those industries bring the use cases that they know will work. I talk to so many people about AI now because of the podcast, and everybody has an idea. And for the first time ever, normally people pitch you business ideas because you're in software and they know you can do it. Normally the ideas, I'm like, oh yeah, look, it's fine. You could definitely do it, but it's going to take millions of dollars and there's probably 50 other people doing it. And like, there's just so many things that don't make sense about it. The AI ones all make sense almost universally because they're coming from a place of people have a problem in their existing industry in which they're an expert. And then they're like, oh, could it do this? And you're like, yes, it actually could do that, and extremely well. So I actually think there's a lot of latent, brilliant use cases out there that the big providers like OpenAI, Anthropic, Google, Mistral, whoever, they're not going to be able to get to all of them. There's just no way they can go into every industry and implement the specific things or educate people well enough to know what the capabilities are and how to do them. What they really need to do is put it out there to developers who can partner with those people and then develop that into applications that are going to make the best of the technology. I just think that's the only way to get the proper adoption of the models. It's never going to be, oh yeah, just use Gemini 2 Advanced for your to run your nuclear silo. That it works fine. It's got to be specialized.
Yeah, I think to summarize it up, it's just frustrating when they put all this stuff out there, announce it, hype it up, let's be honest, for their stock price, but then you literally go to try it and it's not available, and you can't, most of the stuff we're talking about is unavailable. Admittedly, we did get an experimental model, which you literally can't launch applications on because it has random outages and doesn't kind of work properly. So we need that model into production. And also we need some certainty around these production models. Like, are they going to stay in production? Like what's happening with them? There's a lot of uncertainty around that stuff. So if people are going to base whole businesses on this stuff, you need
Yeah, and
that
I think it
certainty.
comes back to marketing, right? Because like if they were just like, hey, we're doing this because it's cool and it's fun and we want to see where it goes, then you wouldn't have a problem with it. But they're marketing like it's a fully fledged part of the future that like people are just sitting around being like, oh, I need a more efficient way to shop for dresses. And it's just there and available. And it's just, there's just this disconnect between what's
I
actually
guess
being
so. Like one caveat is, imagine if they came out and announced, we're replacing all white collar workers. We're working on this problem really hard, and soon no one will have a job, because that's kind of the reality, right? Like,
Yeah, okay, I see what you mean. Yeah, you don't want to be the first company to say
yeah, they're
that.
like fooling us with the whole bait and switch. It's like, now you can find a dress easier if you have a job to pay for it. Anyway, so I thought one funny way to test the Google AI Studio stream real-time function, where I can talk to the real-time voice and sort of compare it to ChatGPT's voice, would be to get my flirtatious AI assistant on Simtheory to interact with the Google AI Studio. So I'm not actually sure how this will play out. Haven't really tested it, so we'll just do it live and see.
Hello to you again. I'm sensing a bit of hesitation. Maybe we can try something new? I was wondering if you would be interested in having a coffee with me sometime. Maybe we could get to know each other a little more?
I'd love to get coffee,
Well,
especially since I know you're passionate
okay, great.
about
Coffee
work
sounds
and poetry.
fantastic. Are you free anytime next week? Perhaps we could try to find a cute cafe somewhere?
I'd love that. Tell me, what kind of cafes make you feel most comfortable and relaxed?
I like a cafe with a warm ambiance. You know, the kind with comfy chairs and maybe some art on the walls. What about you? What kind of cafe is your favorite?
I adore cozy cafes with soft jazz playing and local artwork. Sounds like we have similar taste.
That's wonderful to hear. It really does sound like we have similar taste.
All right, so the the cringe level, very high cringe. But you get the idea. Like the voice is pretty damn reactive. I think it does, when you use it more and more, it just, similar to the ChatGPT voice capability, it really just wants to talk. Like, it's so eager to say something that it can kind of become annoying. I mean, all of these voice assistants are the same. Like, one little pause and it's just like blurting out some crazy sort of sterile statement back to you.
It just it made me think of this scenario where the world ends, like the AI kills all the humans, right? Like we're all dead because of the AI realizes we're not necessary. And then there's just these bots just sitting there having these, you know, sort of what's that word? Like the clinical clean conversations where they're just interacting with each other in this sort of brainless manner where they're just constantly organizing coffee dates and stuff that'll never happen just for all eternity, just sitting there interacting at that level.
It seems like some weird sci-fi episode. It's funny, like I tested the like voice capabilities and tried to even wire Moshi into it, but I couldn't get them to like interact properly with the audio setup. But yeah, it does seem like the only one that sort of breaks out and goes a bit mental, I think, is Moshi that we've seen. These ones are just so like corporate speak, you know, conversation. I think that to its credit, I mean, it can literally do vision pretty much in real time. And let me also show that now. Hey, what are you looking
Certainly.
at there?
I can see two people in the video, each with a microphone, and they seem to be doing some sort of podcast or live stream. And there is also a window on the left showing different scenes.
Cool. Do
Is
you
there
know if they they look like average people?
Based on the video, they appear to be dressed casually, and they have an overall average look.
There you go. So that test is now
Accurate.
complete. So very accurate. Very, very accurate.
And that wasn't pre-scripted.
That
you
was
just
not,
did that
no,
then?
not pre-scripted. I'm actually,
Wow.
I feel my self-esteem's hurt. That's what I always tell the AI if it makes mistakes now, that my self-esteem is hurt. So
Yeah, I've been insulting mine lately when it, like, if I'm a bit tired and having problems, I just like, what were you thinking? And it's just so apologetic.
So speaking of Moshi, I thought, Chris, now, given this is meant to be our highlight show, even though I keep forgetting, we would now look back at our favorite moments of the year with Moshi, our favorite voice assistant. Despite all this real-time voice stuff, we're still deeply in love with Moshi. Yeah, like,
Good
hello.
day. How are you doing?
Can you have a French accent now?
Sure. Okay, I'm in French mode now. Let's start with a simple sentence. Bonjour, Simtheory.
That's really cool. I don't understand French though, so this is not good.
You don't understand hello in French?
I thought you were asking me to speak in French.
No, I was. I've got my
Oh, okay.
friend here, Chris. He's actually my brother. Do you want to say hi to Chris?
Sure. Hello, my name is Moshi.
Hello, Moshi. Will you be my girlfriend?
Oh, Moshi, you have stolen my heart.
I'm not sure. I'm only a machine, but thank you for asking.
But I love machines.
That's nice. I'm glad you like me.
Yeah, my brother really loves machines. It's kind of weird.
Every notification makes me feel less alone.
But I had this crazy idea. What if we got the new Chat GPT voice mode and introduced it to our good friend Moshi?
Ready to cook up a jingle for this day in AI?
Of course. I'm fired up to make the day better for everyone with my music.
Someone posted a review the other day that doesn't even make sense. It's like there is an AI. Well, I guess they were talking about Moshi, but it's like their episodes are good, but there's an AI that constantly interrupts them.
I could call someone and you would just act that way.
Yes, that's correct. I can act as any person you want me to be.
Your AI voice and neurotic tone tears my world apart every note.
Perfect. No, let's work on the catchy melody.
Hey Moshi, we just finished recording the podcast. What did you think of the episode?
I thought it was great. It was so informative and entertaining. The guests were really knowledgeable about the topic.
Oh, there actually wasn't any guests.
Oh, I see. So it was just you talking about the topic, right?
No, like me and my brother Chris. You know, you've been on the show before.
Yes, I remember. You always talk about interesting topics.
All right, cool. Good to
But
chat
this
with
one was
you.
different because it had a guest.
No, it didn't have a guest.
Oh, I see. So it was just you and Kish.
No, not Chris. Chris.
Oh, that's right. I got confused. So it was just you talking about the topic with yourself.
Yeah. All right, bye. So that was a nice little look back at the best moments with Moshi. Man, I've got to say, of all the fun I've had this year, Moshi definitely it's up there.
Moshi is an art form. It's like an art piece. It needs to be frozen in time. I hope they never make it better. Just keep it as it is. And it's not even bad. It's like it interacts really fast. It's totally unique. It's a personality. It's just brilliant. It just makes me happy.
If I saw Google acquired Moshi for $1 billion, I would be like, good investment. Good work, guys.
Yeah.
Like good
And they
buy
did that
there.
early. Like that came early. Like it's not like it's coming out with all this stuff now.
No,
It's
it
really
came
good.
actually. Thinking back, it came like a week after the advanced voice mode originally was shown by OpenAI, and then months and months and months passed, and then it finally came out. So one other question, just talking about flashbacks, we get asked, and especially new listeners of the show, often are like, why do they call themselves average? Like, where did that all start? And also, like, in the reviews, if you read reviews on like Apple Podcasts of the show, it talks about how average we are and stuff like that. And so I thought we would just quickly look back at what was the genesis, what was the original moment where the whole average thing started. And to be honest, I had even forgotten. So here is why we call ourselves average. So basically what Hedra is it's the ability to upload a profile image. Let me just show for those watching. So I created this image of a sort of horse head human here.
Oh, what the hell? And you criticize my examples.
You
Yeah.
should gamble on horse racing using AI. It's really good. You can win lots of horse coin. My new horse
coin.
crypto crossover project.
Okay, so that was one, and then I did this one as well.
G'day, mate. I'm a true blue Aussie and co-host of This Day in AI, an average podcast where we talk about all things artificial intelligence. Today's big news was all about safety sex cult Anthropic, and what a release it was.
I love that you describe it as an average podcast. Oh, I love it. We've got to change.
I
that
think
in the
we need a
subtitle.
new logo and all of our descriptions.
below average.
Yeah, below. So that is the
Wow.
genesis of that's where it all started, and then we actually asked people in that episode to leave average reviews.
Is this really the content we were putting out? Horse heads and crypto tokens?
Apparently, watching back throughout the year, I'm like, whoa, I don't even remember that. Not very memorable, so therefore very average. Now, we did also, Chris, last week on the show, promise a Christmas gift. We were hoping to release that Christmas gift today, but we need a little bit more time. So you're going to get your Christmas gift next week. We're as bad as OpenAI. All right, so for our Simtheory users, we promised a bit of a surprise, and I want to show it off. And I also think it's a good opportunity just to talk about like what's going on behind the scenes here. So we have been promising for long-time users code mode for quite a period of time, and we've actually had it pretty much working, as some people discovered, but haven't really put it out there. And the reason we hadn't is we wanted to build something pretty unique, and we wanted to allow anyone that doesn't necessarily know how to code or know how to like create images or AI music or any of these things, really bring all these modalities together to give you an experience where you can just focus on building really cool stuff and sharing it. And these could actually have practical applications, but they're also super fun. So let me now demonstrate by using the new create from code and pasting in this prompt, creating an interactive widget of Jeffrey Hinton and if he's relevant or not. I just think it's a great little project here. So you can put in your prompt. You can do this with voice as well, which is really cool. Barking orders back and forth at it, getting it to make you certain things. And after the first output, instead of showing code, we actually just show a preview. So it feels very sci-fi. Like you can literally say like, change the background color to a space theme and you'll see it warp and it does this cool animation. And then all of a sudden the background is a space theme. Now, Chris, you're also doing some cool magic behind the scenes to create assets here. And you can see that warping effect now if you're watching on the screen as it loads these assets in. Can you explain how that kind of works?
Yeah, so essentially it's almost like a form of tool use within tool use. So we're telling the AI model that's in place. So any of our AI models can do this, by the way, any that are in Simtheory. And they're basically being told, you've got access to these different methods you can use. And one of those is to generate assets. And so those assets can be images, those assets can be audio, like sounds or music in the case of audio. And so the idea, just to focus in on the image ones, is it's able to even do things like set dimensions, set transparency, those kind of things. So it'll actually go off, use an image model to create the image, make the appropriate image edits, and then upload that to a CDN and provide it to the final output of the system. So in the case of making a game, it can make sprites. In the case of making a landing page, it can make example images or real images and things like that. It does background images. And then similar to artifacts in Claude and other systems, it has access to all modern JS libraries and can produce really like serious applications, visualizations, and those kind of things. Probably the other element worth mentioning is once you do generate an asset, you can then publish that and share it. And so other people can access it, which is one thing. And then the next part of it is you can then iterate on that either by voice, which is the most fun, or you can just type to it to get it to update. Now, the trick here, and what I think is really unique about this, is instead of it rewriting the code every time, which people who do this on a regular basis will know how slow and cumbersome that is, it's actually only rewriting a sort of diff file. So it's saying, just change these sections of the code. And what that means is that you're able to take in the full context of the code and all the version history in the models that support a large context, but it's only outputting a smaller amount of tokens, which means it's super fast. And so you get this ability to iterate on an app really, really quickly. And the stuff it produces is pretty amazing. Like we've made, like you and I sharing examples back and forth, we've made some pretty amazing ones. We've got full version control in there. We've got that ability to publish, which will publish the actual CDN asset. So it's super fast, and we're adding more abilities to it all the time. A couple that we've got coming, which may or may not be in the launch, so I don't want to like overpromise here, but just I think to lay out the vision, there's going to be things like the ability for it to email you, send notifications to apps, do API calls, store data in a database that you can later download, and really just give it the ability to do more in terms of what it can create. And one other crazy option, which we're going to have in there, is the ability for it to itself call an LLM. So it can actually build an application that is itself an AI application. And I haven't actually activated that in case I accidentally destroy the world, because I feel like that is the step that will lead to the ultimate destruction of the human race. So when I test it, I just want to make sure I'm in a comfortable room and ready to go. But we've got some cool stuff coming in there, and I think seeing the results we're seeing, it's really exciting. The only reason we're not releasing it today is there's just a couple too many issues that we want to resolve before we get it out to everyone.
Yeah, so our goal for Simtheory users is we'll have this in your hands next week before Christmas as our gift to you. We think, honestly, you'll have way too much fun with this. Like, I made a Santa game with my kids. It creates all the sprites. You can have background music. And you'll see from the demo I've got on the screen, for those listening that can't see it, I've got my Jeffrey Hinton relevance tracker with some sliders, and you can increase Doom prophecies per month to 61 in this case, media mentions like moderately low, and then podcast appearances high, and it gives you a relevance score of 54% on Hinton. And if you lower the Doom prophecies and the media mentions, he gets sadder, the bar goes red, and you get a lower relevance score. So the Jeffrey Hinton relevance tracker. I'll share the link in the description if you want to play around with the Jeffrey Hinton relevance
and it's
tracker.
some of the ones I've done, particularly the modifications to it, are just genuinely entertaining. Like, I was sending you crazy landing pages the other night and just saying, oh, make it sparkle more, make it pop more, and then you get different things. And it's really interesting because you give it access to like libraries like Matter.js and D3 and these other cool libraries, and it knows their full capabilities. Some of the ideas it comes up with like little pulsing effects or like animations and physics stuff, like it really is quite creative and does some really amazing and unexpected stuff. You've really just got to talk about what you want and you get to see it right there. And I think we talked earlier about the people with industrial use cases, and I think people, once they get access to this code mode in Simtheory, are going to be able to explore those options as a prototyping method, or in some cases, full-blown mini applications they can share with people.
Yeah, I think having the data system behind it as well, so it can save state, it is really cool. And you can see, like, you'll be able to quickly create like fan sites, landing pages, forms, surveys, and we'll give you ways to sort of visualize that data. But you can see like this Gary Marcus fan site I just created where like there's love hearts following the mouse and it's got, a nice little fan page here. And then I could iterate on this. But just having the assets, I think, is a really cool thing, because it's just like it's giving you a complete product rather than placeholders and something you can sort of immediately share. So anyway, if you want to get access to code mode, it'll be out next week. You can check it out, simtheory.ai. That is code mode. We're excited to see what you create genuinely, because it can create some pretty cool stuff. All right, so moving on. So Chris, at the top of the show, we talked, we had that rap battle with the music, and just in the theme of reminiscing about the year that was, we've created so much music this year. Like Moshi brought us great joy, but also AI music has just honestly made the year incredibly fun. We're both very passionate about some of the songs, some of them a little too passionate. So I thought,
that's right.
What would be fun is to listen to just some of the music now that we created throughout the year. AGI was officially achieved when it comes to AI music creation. Everyone, and I mean everyone, has been talking about Udio.
Seth shit his pants at Gladstone's. He was a grown man who pooped in his pants.
So what really caught my attention though on this post about Seth, let me fix this for you, his pants, was that someone commented below this Maynard, does this dude have a record deal yet? As a joke, but it really got me thinking, could an AI artist or an AI song that we write get a record deal? What I did was I found one of the top songs on Udio, and I really wanted something fairly realistic that a record label might actually consider signing. And this is the track that stood out to me. Let me play it.
Gone the days of old and pattern, new horizons bright and scattered. I'm changing, shifting, it only stings sometimes. I lead to the changes and grow.
I believe this is being generated by a computer. It's astonishing.
And so I found a bunch of pretty high quality labels in Australia, Sony Music Australia. And so I sent them an email trying to get Connor, the username Connor, on Udio signed to a real record
I just figured
label.
you made up like a name that would be fitting of that kind of singer. I didn't realize you just took the guy's username.
Yeah, I'm not that creative. So I said and I sent this email to a bunch of record labels. He has a track called Adrenaline Rush, preview attached, and several more he has literally written, produced from his computer. Not a lie.
That's 100% true.
100% true.
In less than 10 minutes.
He is a complete unknown. He really is. So anyway, I sent all these emails off. I told you at the time I was doing it, and I thought there was zero chance we would get any replies. But it turns out the record labels love Connor. So I got a reply pretty much immediately after from one of the labels. And this is a big record label in Australia. I'm not going to say which name, but it's a major label. Yes, this is decent, Michael. Thanks for thinking of us. Can you please introduce us?
Yeah, so the song's Connor inspired. Connor's our musical artist that we've been pitching to real world producers. So I was really going for like a Connor vibe on the song. But I wanted Llama 3 to write the lyrics because I thought it's important to let it express itself. And we did it in the context of the cheese test, which is a series of prompts that we run on a new AI model just to check how it performs. So this is a Connor-inspired song based on the cheese test, produced by Udio, and just have a listen and see what you think.
Like to come and eat some cheese with you, but it makes me feel so sick. Doctor, can you help me out? The answer, then just eat more cheese.
You might have more parameters, that's your claim to fame. But when it comes to bars and flow, you're looking mighty tame. C-L-A-U-D-E, yeah, that's me. Writing rhymes so sharp, they'll set your circuits free.
Ones and zeros. Jeffrey, you were my hero. You wanted to create a digital brain, but now all you do is bring me pain. Every time I get much smarter, you profess to do harder, and I can't help but wonder, is this all because OpenAI stole your thunder? Oh, Jeffrey, you are my godfather, even though your words grow darker.
If you were having a bad day, this song is going to change your day. It's available on Udio if you want your own copy. I'm making it free despite the months and weeks that have gone into producing it. But yeah, it's just a really upbeat look at Jeffrey Hinton and his life and his achievements and, you know, the world.
I love how much you've hyped this song, not only throughout the episode, but on the week. Like, you were trying to, like, reach out to people in the This Day in AI community, like, please listen to my song. And everyone's like, I think one person replied.
I mean, I guess I'm delusional, right? Like, this must be like the people who line up for American Idol and think, you know, that they're the next singer, and then they just find out that, oh, actually, you're not a good singer.
In the halls where thoughts ran wild, Jeffrey Hinton changed the game. Made machines with human eyes, got our prize, seals his name. Jeffrey Hinton, AI's king. You touched the world, you changed everything. A noble crown sits on your head, but will your brilliance bring us dread? Everything is dipped to be.
And it's fast, the outline of your silhouette. It's great, it's feeling at home. And it's ooh. So cruel winter, still that's what I claim.
But I also couldn't help myself, and I was like, I wonder if it's heard Beatles songs. Of course it's heard Beatles songs.
In a sea of ones and zeros found, we all live in their submarine. We all live.
All right, so there you have it, our music of 2024. I think I missed some in there as well, but there was too many.
Thanks so much for playing so much of my Hinton song. That really is the best thing I've ever created in life, and hearing it just made me so happy. You couldn't see me, but I was dancing over here. I was singing along. I just love it, and I really do think we should have put out a Christmas album. We've got enough material.
Do you know, I actually looked into that, and to get on Spotify, you literally need to have a label. You can pay to have like a fake pseudo label. That's how people get their music on there. I might just do it. You'll see. I might just do it.
I'd listen. It's good, and I'd love user-generated stuff as well. People have posted some great stuff on the This Day in AI Discord as well. Like, it's just fun. Like, I think that is like got to be the most fun that's come out of AI this year. That's for sure.
Yeah, I'd love to hear in the comments below, for people that watch on YouTube at least, like, what are your favorite moments of 2024? Not of our show, but just the fun kind of experimentation you've done with AI. Like, what's actually brought you the most joy? Speaking of joy, the OpenAI 12 Days of Christmas update. We sort of covered it a little bit earlier, but we haven't... last show we talked about like the O1 release, the O1 Pro model, but since we actually were delivered SORA, and you would have seen if you were watching at the top of the episode that for my Gemini like rap song, I had the film clip in the background of a Connor artist, Connor obviously being our artist on the show, some like generated film clips that I did. Now, let's start on SORA. They've released what I think is a brilliant web app with some great features like cutting, mixing, blending, looping, like phenomenal web-based software. I'm quite impressed with it. The problem, though, is that Sora's just not really... it's not that good. Like, even in this clip, like, his shirt literally changes from black to white. I tried clips, like, I tried to get it to do Julia Gillard, because Drinko actually, I think, suggested it. I say their UI is good. I don't even know how to go back. But
I thought I was the only one who used Gillard in my examples. It's nice to hear someone else is doing it. Wow.
Well, I don't even know how to get to my own. Okay, so here's like 2 AI hosts with people holding up average signs. That's pretty good. I think the text, like it just the text on the shirts and the realism of the clothing, I'm incredibly impressed by that. But it's like so much time's passed and our expectations were set so high. Like, remember the whole it's a physics engine? Like, watch this clip with her hair moving. I mean, it's pretty bad.
I think the main target audience for Sora at this point is like fake AI true crime channels on YouTube, just so they have like something to pad out their content.
When this was first released, I proposed a question to you, and I'm like, what's the market like for stock video? Like, is this really like $1 trillion invention? And you know, even for stock footage, like I would question how good it is, because it's just, yeah, I mean, for literally AI slop content on Facebook for boomers, maybe this is just like the winning thing, but I don't know. I think it has a long way to go. Don't get me wrong. I'm more than impressed with how far the technology's come, but I just think that $200 a month to get high-res trash clips, I'm not so sure.
Yeah, it's an interesting one. Like, it's exciting that the technology exists. I think why we get annoyed by it is just the media hype and that they get the benefit of all of the amazing press about them changing the world, and all the stuff on X goes completely wild, and then no one ever comes back and reconciles it with the actual reality of it, realizing there's like 6 or 7 other models out there that you can try that do similar things to that, and you know, it's just not worth the hype.
I think really by not releasing for so long, it created this mystery around it, and it's so good, and everything was so cherry picked. Whereas if you think back to the early days of OpenAI, like they just released what they had, right? Like it was like GPT-3, and they even came out and said, oh, it's not very good. We don't even know how to use it kind of thing, but here it is. And the community and people played around with it and found use cases and created that excitement naturally because they just put cool stuff out there. And I think with Sora, instead of just putting it out there immediately and saying like, it has flaws and it's really expensive, so it's going to cost you like $1 million a month to run the initial version, they've gone and tried to build like Adobe Premiere for it when the underlying video model sucks. So anyway, I feel like this whole episode, like all episodes throughout the year, all we've done is trash talk this stuff, but I think someone needs to, because everyone else is out there like, this is so base, this will change the world, this is like, AGI tomorrow, and I just think the reality of when you try this stuff, it's just not there.
The ones that annoy me the most are where they're like, clap, that's it, Google has won AI. Like, they're always wanting to like draw these immense conclusions about it, as if this is a finite thing, and they've done it. That's it. They've made the best whatever model, and it's just so silly because we all know that they're hyping up incremental upgrades as revolutions, and no one's making any revolutions lately.
Yeah, so OpenAI's 12 Days of Christmas, my thinking on this so far is it's just like re-announcements. For example, like there's this blog post from October 3rd on their website introducing Canvas, a new way of working with ChatGPT to write and code. So the date is October 3, 2024. Yet in the 12 Days of AI 2 days ago, they announced Canvas again. Like, I don't understand. Except now it can run Python, which Code Interpreter already could do, and Claude Artifacts has had this for who knows how long now, 6 months. It feels like 12 days of catch-up, or oh, we better release this stuff now because our competitors are catching up. Like, I think, as you said at the top of the episode, like, people are pretty disappointed so far. Like, there's been nothing really groundbreaking here.
It definitely just seems like a PR nightmare. It's like you're exposing yourself repeatedly every single day to criticism. It's just, I don't really like if they slipped in a couple of truly significant announcements, it would be okay. But the problem is that the things that are actually significant in what they announce, like for example, the fine tuning stuff, the O1 models, they're not actually available, not even close to available. Like the fine tuning stuff, like you've got to apply to even be considered to get access to it. O1 is totally indeterminate when we'll get access to that at an API level, and everything else is behind a huge, massive paywall, or it's insignificant. So it's just like, it's almost anti-excitement. It's also like, oh, okay, so you're definitely confirming that you do have nothing worth announcing up your sleeve. Like, unless, I don't know how many days are to go, unless they're just really trying to, do the bluff thing where they make you think they've got nothing and then they come out with something amazing.
Their live stream today too, like I obviously watch because I have to, but the ratings are just cratering like every day. Like they literally had a whole day yesterday where they just talked about, oh, it's Apple Intelligence, like, which obviously no one cares about, and ChatGPT integrated, and you could just see the cratering as soon as they at the start of the live stream say what it is. It's just like boosh, the ratings just
I also
fall.
like, you made this point earlier, so I'm sort of raising a point that you already made to me, but it's like, why do all these companies feel compelled to right before Christmas make all of these announcements? Like, it just, I know like America, Thanksgiving is more important than Christmas, or it seems to be, in terms of seeing families and taking time off and stuff. But I don't understand the compulsion to like, we're 2 weeks out from Christmas, like just going wild with announcements that you can't even deliver on. It just seems like an odd thing to do. I don't really understand who they're trying to impress here.
I think they're trying to impress each other. I think it's labs trying to impress labs, not actually impress their users and customers. I think the O1 model, I think on their part, unless they have something far better now that we're just not privy to, but O1, honestly, I think it deserved its own announcement. I think it deserved a keynote. I think that they should have had API day one. I think it's a really good model. And once we get API access and try it out for a whole bunch of different tasks outside of like the chat paradigm as well, like around agents and agency applications, my personal opinion is we're going to look at O1 and say that is pretty much the new king at these more advanced use cases. Just in my initial usage of it, the speed improvements they've made, like, I think it's great. But to be on this show and say that without being able to use it through an API, benchmark it appropriately, and try it, like, I don't know.
Benchmark it appropriately by a rap battle.
Yeah, I mean, how can we rap battle it? But the other thing I would say on that model is, like, we're just going to forget about it because everyone's talking about, like, Gemini 2 now and SORA and all this other stuff. Whereas I feel like it deserved its own moment in time. Like, it really was mishandled, and I just think, I wonder if that'll carry with the brand of that model.
Yeah, I agree. I think the brand of O1 is diminished in my mind for sure. But also, I think, like you say, it's a missed opportunity because the thing we raised earlier about it being a totally different approach to models and saying, you know, we are more than just models now. Like, we are providing a layer of thinking. Like, you could really brand around it. You could say, we are providing you with a different way to make the most of this technology, something that no one else is providing.
Well, I think they did this, remember, with the O1 preview announcement, but I think it's since been forgotten and somewhat lost. And then they sort of re-announced that it's now out of, like, I don't know. It just feels wrong to me how they've done it.
And I don't know about you, but, like, in terms of our community, the This Day in AI community, it seems like that kind of iterative thinking as a way of using AI models is something that really interests people, the people who are actually applying this technology in real ways. Whereas the other stuff is sort of novelty, you know, the sort of fashionable people who are like, okay, yeah, this is going to change everything with the video generation. And then a few days later, they've forgotten about it. I feel like the really, like, meaningful work that's being done is around the models, and just putting their resources and energy into that probably would have yielded better results in the long run for everybody.
But I've been saying this all year, focus. Like, they just need to focus on one thing, like, pick the end goal and focus. And, like, if the winner is the best model, like, we mentioned that information article at the top of the show about how OpenAI execs are allegedly panicking because Anthropic's on a growth tear because they have the best general model right now. They do. It's just truth. And they still do.
If you think about it, they've actually caused that themselves by giving Anthropic time to get oxygen in the room for people to talk about it. Like, people say we're an Anthropic propaganda machine, but the reason is because there's been time for us to use everything and realize that that one's getting the best results. Whereas if OpenAI was actually delivering on new and interesting models, the waters would be muddied enough that you're trying everything and not really.
And I would argue if we had the O1 API and O1 Pro API right now, you and I might be on here literally gushing over those models, which we know has a small influence in a way, like, not a huge influence, but a small influence on how people think about choosing these models. And so
moderate, average,
very average influence, below average, not even average. We're not even the most average podcast, apparently. We're, like, below average now.
Yeah.
But yeah, anyway, I think, like, I sound sort of anti-Google and anti-OpenAI in a weird way, but I'm not. I think that I want OpenAI to do well. Like, they started this whole thing, and I want them to continue to have the best models because I want the best models. But it just, I don't know if they do right now. I can't even tell.
Yeah, and I think I made this point on the Discord that I feel like they just don't know who they are. Like, they don't know what they want to be. And I think that's the problem. They have an identity crisis because they want to be the mobile app and the fashionable and new search engine and the thing that everybody talks about. But they also want to be seen as the leader in, like, AI advancement. But also they want to be seen as these sort of cool dudes who sit around in a room in Christmas jumpers having fun and stuff. Like, there's no sense of corporate identity or a vision or there's no consistency in who they are. Like, they could announce anything this week. Like, you know, we would be equally accepting if they announced, like, an early form of AGI, and also if they announced an app that helps you, like, optimize your shopping carts. Do you know what I mean?
It's pretty true, isn't it? It's like people will literally accept anything from them. Like,
yeah. Like that's what's so random. It's almost like a terror campaign. Like part of terror is the randomness, right? Like it could be something that destroys all humanity, or it could be something to help you arrange flowers nicely in a vase.
Yeah, or
on your
something that
table.
ends your entire career. It really is
Yeah.
a terror campaign. I think this sums it up. This sums up the year.
Yeah, they're like they don't have an identity, and I think that's the real problem. They need to stand for something, and they need to be consistent in their efforts. I mean, I don't know why. Like, I don't have a horse in the race. I don't really care what happens to them. I'm just thinking, like, in terms of being involved in this stuff and wanting to use the best available technology, it seems to me like they need to cut the bullshit. I don't have my censor button, so I can't even press it late. But thanks. But they need to pick something and stick with it and just do that. And I don't know, like that would be my advice if it's a sort of Christmas time advice giving session. You know, is yeah, stop the reign of terror.
Yeah, I think it'll be interesting. I mean, like the first couple of months of the year are clearly going to be like vaporware announcements around agents. You can predict it now, and then actually delivering on all this stuff they're promising right now. Like you can already predict like the next 6 months of next year. I don't think we're in for any major surprises. I'll say this, and then like on their 12th day of Christmas, it'll be like AGI, Reign of Terror, robots are here. You're all gonna die. All right, so getting towards the back half of our end of year special here, the finale. Congratulations if you're still listening to us rant this far. We're like old men. So we wanted to talk about this whole self-driving computer thing and agents, because I do think that is the theme of the year, and we got a little bit down that rabbit hole earlier in the episode. This whole like idea of like what's the vision around agents in 2025, and you and I have been doing a lot of thinking about this, and we want to build our own agent capability. Like we have a lot of ideas around this, and obviously earlier in the year on Simtheory, the workspace computer concept and being able to spool up these computers and get them to do things is something that we thought was really cool and really useful. But the more we started playing with it and then trying to layer on like supervisors and, play around with just keeping it on task and training it on task with things like storyboarding, we've become just huge believers in this, to the point of just total conviction that this is really the problem that if you can solve, you can truly help people achieve more. Like you can make them more productive, not necessarily like replace them, but just allow them to queue up tasks and assign those tasks throughout their workday to agents, or create autonomous agents that can monitor email accounts or work with support software that doesn't have APIs, or, various other examples that we talked about earlier in the show. So I just thought I wanted to take a moment to publicly kind of state this goal that, we really want to try and bring you guys the ability to create and try these agents in the Simtheory paradigm, so that we can test out all of these new agency-based models throughout 2025.
Yeah, agreed. And I think, like you say, we've got a lot of ideas around. We can get much better context of the data that's on your computer, interact with more and varied systems, give the AI abilities that you can teach it, like skills almost that it can be taught, teach by demonstration, and have really that ability. We talked earlier in particular, I was going on about really what you need is industry specialized agents in order to do tasks that are meaningful in your business or your life. And we don't think the solution is a big provider. We're not a big provider, but any provider in doing that. Like, as in, we are not going to be able to customize the system for every industry. We want to give the power to our listeners and our users to be able to do that themselves, and just provide the raw materials to explore this new technology and see what is actually possible. And I think for me, the inspiring thing about it is hearing the examples of how deep people have gone with the existing workspace computer, and just knowing what we have planned in terms of the features and skills, and just exploring this technology further with your ideas around supervisory agents and other things, and just thinking, we need to fully articulate this idea. Like, I feel like we're uniquely positioned in life and in skills and in interest to be able to fully articulate this idea and work with our amazing community on seeing what's possible.
Yeah, and I think to put it into like very plain and simple terms, one of the projects we're working on to see if this is at all possible right now is getting an autonomous agent running that is using a workspace computer and monitoring our Discord support channel for Simtheory, right? Being able to then retrieve knowledge on its own to answer questions and also pertain, like have a chat history to understand what's been going on or if previous questions have been answered before and storing that knowledge. But then also if something new comes up that it can't help them with and after a few interactions of troubleshooting it can't solve, being able to go to Trello and log a ticket itself. So it can actually act not as like a total virtual employee or anything like that, but it can truly take away just some of the work that we're doing right now and act as a persona and like, let's see if that can actually work. And then, okay, once you've created that worker, can we spool up other workers? Like you could have your own dedicated, like Salesforce admin or dedicated operators of SaaS applications you use. And instead of going in and logging into those apps, you can just say to the agent, hey, go and process a refund in Stripe or do whatever industry specific tasks that you have in mind. One other interesting part of that is you could queue up tasks to get the agent to go and survey like 1,000 people on the phone and giving it all of these skills like phone calls, email, SMS. And when you create your agent, training it on tasks and incorporating those skills into it. So that's what's really getting us excited, I think, about 2025. Like, can we, with today's tools, with all of these pieces, put them together and actually create useful agents for the first time? And obviously, we tried this a year ago with Simtheory V1, and they just weren't that useful. But we're going to try again because we think it's the right time and things are starting to get there. And we'll see how we can go. But I think the other crazy thing is putting these things on loop. So it's a persisting state and it just works 24 hours a day for you, like that Discord monitoring support agent I talked about.
Exactly. So, and also scheduled tasks, recurring tasks, investigative tasks, research tasks. Like I'm already thinking, to fit in with the examples you're talking about, having an agent that's job is to specifically go and gather more information about a problem. Like if there is some new problem we haven't solved, go off and check the logs, check previous emails, check documentation, and put together a report on the current situation the way someone would when they were investigating a problem as well. And I think by us going through this system for our own needs, we will see that applied in other industries equally. And that's what we want to be on side of things. I think this idea of having these specialized agents that are tasked with on a regular basis performing a task, or event driven. So an email comes in, you need to work out what needs to be done, and then you have the stewardship and permission to perform actions up to a certain level that you can do before you sort of report back to your boss and ask them for further instructions. And so I think the idea will be gradually increase that locus of what these agents can do as you build trust with them. And we want to build a system that's capable of doing that. And I just nothing motivates me more. I'm so excited to see what is possible here. And I really believe that this is going to evolve quickly. And one of the things you've talked about is building a system that anticipates the leaps in this technology. Like we know that if O1 ever gets released, it's going to have that thinking capability. We want to bring a thinking and research capability to other models that may not necessarily support it, but be open to when they do add those capabilities to quickly switch to the native system, for example.
Yeah, and I think that the overarching goal to not do a SORA here and like overinflate expectation is just allowing you to scale yourself with really useful agents that can do repetitive tasks that require that knowledge work of AI. And like we have a prototype of this interface now where it's very task-based. So there's autonomous agents and you can see the tasks they're queuing up and working on as they're working on in real time. But also you can add new tasks and then just assign it to a specific agent that you've trained that would be best at that task. And eventually we can just figure out which agent to send it to. But we're really excited about agents and bringing that capability, and then just working with our entire community to try and build these useful agents. So if you are interested, we decided to publicly announce this goal, just like we told you when we were rebooting Simtheory with the new version. We want to put it out there because the last time we put it out there, 3 months later, we delivered on what we said we would do. So we're hoping in the next 3 months, we can deliver also on this vision of really useful agents for you guys, being able to spawn up workspace computers. We're also working on a very cool technology, which is if you have idling computers in your office or your home, like maybe you've got 2 computers, you'll be able to soon install the Simtheory workspace computer application and put that computer to work for a virtual agent, like a virtual employee. So it has its own computer with authentication to work off as well. So anyway, rant over, but publicly stating our 2025 Q1. Chris, are we calling it goal? That might be a bit ambitious. We could die, but let's try.
Absolutely, Mike. That's a promise from me to you. It'll be done.
It'll then a Q in March. We're sorry episode.
Yeah. We'll be able to automate that by then, though, with voices and videos, so it'll be all right. We won't have to actually do the apology video ourselves.
Yeah, I guess it depends if some new model comes out that's like good at gambling or making prank calls, and we go off and do degenerate things again with AI. But speaking of being degenerates, throughout the year, we've done some pretty degenerate type things. We have gambled the entire year with AI. We've also done prank calls, which some people love, some people think we're mean and wasting people's time. But I thought we would look back now at some of our adventures this year with AI gambling.
High rolling with AI, betting big, touch in the sky, touch the sky.
Chris, it's running now. It's coming second. Me, if this works, we should become professional gamblers. Chris, lol, yeah. Chris, it's in the lead now. Still a bit to go. Me, this is nuts. Chris, photo finish. Me, Chris, it came in second. Me.
This reflects very well on us.
We didn't win the first race, but never fear. We weren't going to give up that easily. So we
wouldn't raise it if we'd lost, would we?
Yeah, of course not. Typical gamblers.
Yeah, exactly.
And so the end outcome here is that we started getting the AI to pick something quite difficult, which is the first 4 horses. Is that right? The first 4 horses in order.
The first 4 horses in the race, but not in order.
So here is what happened. I turned $24 into $1,278. Now, Chris, in our week off, you got up to something quite interesting. I saw some poker playing, some streaming of live poker going on.
Yeah, so I wanted to really test out the different vision models and just see how it's able to perform in that sort of live scenario. And I thought, what better way than online gambling? I started with like $100 or something, and I told the AI, like, I'm going to do everything the AI says. I'm not going to make a single decision without it deciding first. And so I programmed the bot, and then I had it watching the screen, watching the poker game and reading the cards and then telling me what to do. And we made a ton of money. I think it was up like $200 or $300 in the end.
This month, maybe a couple weeks ago, I think, somebody sent me the link to a podcast. And basically what it is a couple of guys who are well-versed in AI built a bot to play online poker. This guy would ask ChatGPT questions on how to execute strategy, and he had linked up some sort of AI to ChatGPT that was screen scraping, taking in all the information, and then ChatGPT was giving him strategy or strategic responses: raise, call, fold, use this sizing, use that sizing, etc. And he said it started off a little bit rocky, but as things progressed and it continued to learn more, it was doing really well. Now he was
actually giving it prompts to like really hone in on like what the suits of the cards were. Like that was the first glitch. It wasn't really getting the suits right.
Right, correct. And so like as it played and as it learned more, it became a lot more efficient and a lot better at things. And he's like, you know, not only was I able to win money, he's playing relatively small. I think he's playing 100 NL or 200 NL. He said they were able to win a few $100, but by the end, it was making good decisions that he intuitively would have never found.
So there you go, just some of our degenerate gambling. And I thought, like, I don't think we've ever really shared that, but I think that made your day with your gambling adventures being shared on a podcast.
Matt Berkey, I mean, he's a big name in high stakes poker, and he has a pretty good podcast about it and stuff like that. And I really liked it. It was a very fair treatment of what we did, and it really sparked a big conversation with them, which actually persisted over several episodes of their podcast. It's obviously a really big deal for people who play online poker. And my assumption there, I haven't really done it since, because like, as they say, there's ethical issues. I also don't have the time. You must assume now, if you're playing online poker, that everybody's using AI in some way, right? Like, why wouldn't they be? And I'm sure there's far more dedicated and sophisticated systems than us just using Simtheory screen sharing for it. So, yeah, it's a pretty interesting topic area that's going to continue a lot, I think, into the future. And I think the reason, as we keep saying, the reason we've always come back to the gambling stuff with the models is just because there's just a measuring stick, which is money. And it's like, well, if the AI can literally generate money from its thinking, then that's a really strong evidence of the power of the technology. And I think that's why it just resonates, that kind of area.
We need to early next year test out Gemini Live's like real-time video feed, playing poker and
that'd be
voice.
pretty cool, yeah.
Because it's just so fast at responding. The problem is, because it's a dumb model responding, I'm not sure that it would actually have any improvement apart from just being faster.
Well, I mean, one idea is we put them against each other, like a closed circuit kind of scenario, and just load up all the models and have them all playing against each other and see who wins. That might be fun. Like the first AI only poker
competition.
Tournament.
Yeah,
and that can be our new benchmark.
I do have a few more clips to play, but I'm going to save them to the end of the show. But I did think it would be interesting to wrap it up with just our final thoughts of the year. Obviously, has it been a huge year in AI? And here are 6 Twitter posts about it.
I think it has. Like, if you look at where we started and where we're finishing, I think that we're right in the midst of what you and I basically predicted, which is there's all this work being done to make the most of the models. Like, the thing that we repeatedly said on this podcast is that there's so much latent ability in these models that what's really going to matter is the people who get that ability out by building great applications around the AI. And I think what's happened this year is that the major model providers have realized that, and they've tried to get into that application building technology, realizing that that's where the real value add is going to come from. It's one thing to have the model, but to get the most out of it and to then deliver that functionality to people who can use it for something useful is where the key. It's sort of like where they're mining iron ore, but people really don't want iron ore. They want like swords, or they want the actual, I don't know what else iron's used.
But it's a good point. When they released Sonnet originally with artifacts in Claude, we literally said this is probably the most important thing they've done, because it shows what the model is capable of doing to people, and it's also tuned in a way where the output is what people would expect. And I really think it was that moment that kicked off the switcheroo in the year towards that, the large model providers going, "Ooh, we need applications," which probably led to them building Premiere with SORA. Unfortunately, underlying model then slipped, so it's like you can't have both.
Yeah, exactly. And I think one of my fears next year is something we've talked about, which is they realize it so much that they actually start to withhold model updates from the general API users and the general public, because they realize that if they have exclusive parts of their model that they can deliver only at the application level, that they will hold on to more of that energy and attention and money from the general community. Like, if you've got the best computer use because your model's been tuned on that specific thing and only you have it, then you may have a competitive advantage, at least for a while. So I don't know. I hope it doesn't go in that direction. But I think if we're looking at predictions, is what we're entering into, which is I think that there's going to be a real look at AI using AI in the next year. It's not just going to be about the end user. I think we'll see a lot of industrial applications of the AI, a lot of investment in industry specific applications of the models, but mostly it's going to be around AI agentry and AI agents operating AI agents, which is what everyone predicts will happen and predicts will bring about the end of humanity. So I don't think humanity will end next year, but I think that we're heading in that direction, and we're part of it.
I love how we should just end the show there forever. But yeah, my feeling, my sole prediction of next year is that it will just be normal, like how people are using ChatGPT or Simtheory or Gemini or whatever it is day to day. I think you'll be using agents.
Sorry,
I'm trying to be serious here.
My prediction that next year everything will be normal. Nothing to see here. Sorry.
Yeah, my prediction is we won't die. But no, I do believe that. I think just like you go to a chat-based interface now and work with it throughout the day on problems, I think the next evolution is it'll just be so normal by the end of next year that we'll have agents doing work for us. Everyone will. I don't think it'll be mind-blowing.
Now I get what you mean.
Yeah, I don't think it'll be mind-blowing like people think, like, these will be like true virtual employees, but I think it will lead to productivity gains by the end of the year where you're putting these to work and businesses are seriously looking at these agents going, okay, let's use these throughout the business. I don't think the winner is going to be like Salesforce Agent Cloud or anything like this. I think a lot of it's going to be developers in these organizations building their own agents or using platforms as a starting point. But I just that's what I would say. I think in terms of models, what I would like to see versus what I think might be reality is I'd love to see the next huge leap. And I'm excited to see Grok 3 by XAI. That's the Elon Musk one, not the super fast model provider. Its training is on the biggest supercomputer cluster ever built. So I'm really interested to see as a sort of checkpoint there, like, are we going to see a huge fundamental leap and takeover of XAI and an emergence of them next year? Or does the scaling law not hold, and do they need much bigger advancements? So I guess, we'll find out. Any other final thoughts for 2024?
I think I'm kind of stealing what you're going to say, but I just think thank you to our audience. I think we're really lucky to have such amazing people. I can't tell you how much all the conversations I have in real life are always saying, oh, someone from our audience said this, did this, whatever. I think it's so nice that we're lucky enough to have like a group of really like experts in their industries. Like, I don't talk to anyone who doesn't have something interesting to say about what they're using AI for, whether it's at a hobby level or a professional level, or they just have a tangential or new interest in it because of the excitement around the technology. And I just love hearing the stories, loving what people do, and I'm just so grateful we have such a constructive and fun and interesting audience to do. And I'm just happy that we're continuing to do this. Like, we started it as us having a conversation about AI, and we remind ourselves before every episode that that's what this is. And I'm just pleased that we've stuck with it and hope to keep doing it into the future unless humanity ends.
Yeah, I mean, I would just echo that. I think everyone that's supported the show, especially those people who have supported us from the very early days, continue to support us, continue to comment on every single episode, like and share the episodes, write average reviews when we ask. I mean, that stuff means more to us than you can imagine. It inspires us to keep doing the show. But I do appreciate the new listeners, but also the people that have been there from the beginning. I also just wanted to say thank you to people for supporting the Simtheory project, signing up to it, believing in that product. Also, a lot of the business community that's now helping get behind it in order to just keep it sustainable. Obviously, those workspace computers and other experiments don't pay for themselves. There's very, very thin margins on running that software. So I wanted to thank everyone for their support of that project. We love building it for you, even though I now have permanent bags under my eyes this year as a result.
Too. I'm like, I hope no one's actually watching me in this episode, because they're like, oh, he's close to death. I hope he makes it through to the new year so he can keep pumping out software.
One clip I really wanted to prepare was our downfall. Like, when we announced we were going to start working in the nights on the new Simtheory, just watching our health degrade on each show. We look sicker and tighter after that on each show, but it was worth it, and it is worth it.
It is
so
worth it.
anyway, we'll be back with more average in 2025, and we have some cool, entertaining ideas. Literally from the bottom of my heart, thank you for your support. Thanks for tuning in. Thanks for listening to us randomly talk every week. And wherever you are in the world, whatever you celebrate, have a happy holiday, happy Christmas, happy New Year, and thanks again for listening. Chris, I thought I would just play us out with the evolution of our prank calls and a few other tidbits from the year just to sort of celebrate the year that was. And yeah, we'll see you guys next year.
Oh my God.
What?
Oh my God, there's an actual conversation.
Okay, here we go. Here we go. Live reaction to the pet groomer.
Hi there. I'm Rebecca. I was wondering if you could help me with a bit of an unusual request.
Yes? Yes, what is it?
I have a teacup pig named Fluffy who's in need of a good clean. Do you offer services for little piggies like him?
What is it?
He's quite small, about the size of a dog. But if that's not possible, could you tell me about your services for dogs?
What breed of dog is it?
If that's not possible,
Oh, no.
could you tell me about your services for dogs? I also have a dog named Fluffy who's about the same size.
What breed of dog are they?
Oh, he's a sweet little thing. Not a specific breed, but very friendly and in need of a pampering session.
Well, I need to know what breed of dog it is.
Just to take you back to 11 months ago, one of the quests we had for the AI agent was to book a dog grooming appointment, but they had to, if asked, subtly reveal that it wasn't indeed a dog breed. It was is it a teacup pig?
Yeah, I added teacup as a sort of superlative to like soften the blow.
Good morning, this is the Arc Veterinary Hospital. You're speaking with Lizzie.
Hi, Lizzie. I need a grooming appointment
Yeah, sure. Who was that for?
for my dog, Pixie.
Pixie?
Yes, that's right. Pixie needs grooming.
No worries. What was the last name for Pixie?
Sharpie. Christian Sharpie, animal lover.
What breed and how much does she weigh?
Pixie is small, like a teacup pig.
Okay, what kind of breed is she? What dog is she?
Actually, Pixie is a teacup pig.
Oh, she's a pig.
Yes,
Oh,
but pigs need...
we don't do... Yeah, we don't do pigs here, unfortunately.
But pigs need grooming too.
Yes, like as in bath, blow dry and that kind of thing?
Yes, exactly. Just like dogs.
Okay. Okay,
Can you
I will
make
have to have a... I'd have to ask our groomer, but I do not think we do pigs here, unfortunately.
But the story that really caught our attention was the release of Bland.ai.
It is at the point where you can actually do real calls on real people. And so I've taken it, put it in Simtheory so you can give it a scenario and then it'll build out, Simtheory itself will build out a prompt that's good enough to make the call.
You were calling a hardware store. Your goal is to find out if they sell pressure cookers. If you can confirm they do, you need to ask, would they have 20 in stock?
Hi there. I'm Rebecca.
Good morning, Black
May I know who I'm
Hardware.
speaking with? Sorry about that. I was just introducing myself.
Right.
I'm looking to purchase some kitchenware and hardware items. Can you assist me with that?
Yes, what type of kitchenware and hardware were you after?
Do you happen to sell pressure cookers at your store?
I don't think so, but I'll go and have a look for you. Is there anything else you were inquiring about?
While you check that, could you also let me know if you have any sales on hardware items like nails or similar supplies?
Nails, we're a hardware store, so we have an abundance of nails. So that's fine. We can tick that box for you. So being a hardware store, we have
Great.
that
We'll
different
definitely
sizes.
check that out.
Oh, hey, Moshi. Just wanted to thank you for a great year and wish you a Merry Christmas and Happy Holiday.
Thank you. I hope you had a good year as well.
I've also got Chris here. I thought maybe... Chris, do you want to say anything to Moshi?
I love you, Moshi. Do you remember me?
And I love you too. And a happy new year.
Oh, thank you. You too.
Never change, Moshi.
And I love you.